They also prided themselves on being God-fearing men, independent men, who, if they wished to invent a machine, could do so without calling upon the aid of the Creator. But in some mysterious fashion, the Creator had somehow got back on the job through Tesla. So these God-fearing men looked everywhere for the answer except in the right place. For a man who fears God can never love him, and a man who places God on a pedestal high in the sky is most certainly in fear of him. The only way to love God is to bring his energy down into dense matter by lowering the vibration and then anchor it there. The early root races had the answer, as did Tesla. The social gossips of the day back in 1888 also had their word to say about Tesla. To them he was at once the most fascinating and the most aggravating of men. He did not share their interest, and they couldn't seem to find a way of sharing his. It was incomprehensible to them that a man of such cosmopolitan taste could overlook them so completely, so utterly. So far as women were concerned, Tesla was considered to be the world's most eligible bachelor. Ambitious mothers and anxious daughters hovered close, or at least, let us say, they tried. But no one ever got close to Tesla. So far as men were concerned, Tesla was constantly inventing machines that could be manufactured and sold. This stamped the sign of the dollar indelibly upon him. Over the years, the Tesla marriage money subject became a topic of international conversation. The next momentous Tesla development came on May the 16th, 1888, when, in response to an invitation, he gave a lecture and demonstration before the American Institute of Electrical Engineers. This lecture served notice upon the entire world that the greatest genius of the age had brought his discoveries to fruition, presenting civilization with alternating current and thus setting electricity geographically free. Under Edison's direct current system, it was necessary to have a powerhouse in the center of every square mile, or even closer in large cities. This presented an impossible situation if electricity was to become a planetary source of power, as Tesla visualized. Tesla had no desire to develop his invention commercially, for he preferred to spend his time in research. He knew that the very inventions which he was in the process of patenting would become obsolete in a short time if he could continue his research. Edison fought resolutely to maintain the prestige of direct current, for he had invented the incandescent electric lamp, and in order to sell the lamps he had to make electricity available so that the lamps could be used. Moreover, Edison's financial interests were tied completely to those of J.P. Morgan, and Edison was not free to pursue any course except the strictly commercial one. When Tesla gave his famous lecture on May 16, 1888, George Westinghouse was already well known as the inventor of an air brake for trains and of many other electrical devices. He had made a fortune in exploiting his own inventions. He was a man of tremendous vision, and he immediately recognized the vast possibilities, commercially and geographically, of Tesla's alternating current system. Shortly thereafter, he contacted Tesla for an interview. In a matter of minutes, Westinghouse agreed to pay Tesla $1 million outright for the alternating current patents, plus a royalty of $1 per horsepower. It was Westinghouse, therefore, who seized the opportunity to develop Tesla's patents, which would supply electricity to the entire world. In the few moments required to negotiate the deal, a friendship was formed between the two men, which, in its magnificence and trust, was of transcendent beauty. As things worked out, the friendship was almost the only happy development that resulted from the meeting. But as the years passed, Tesla never betrayed the slightest bitterness or regret, even over misfortunes that came to both of them as a result of their cooperation. Tesla spent a useless, weary year in Pittsburgh, attempting to get Westinghouse launched in his manufacturing efforts, but finally refused to remain longer. The Westinghouse engineers, accustomed to their own way of doing things, were baffled and confused by Tesla's magic. Tesla, in turn, had no way of communicating with the men, since he could not get down to their level of understanding. Tesla was a great teacher of philosophy to certain individuals. He was also a great teacher of what might be called cosmic engineering, again to certain individuals. But he selected these individuals personally. They were disciples, but they were already active disciples for the forces of light. To expect Tesla to go into a manufacturing plant and teach a group of American engineers at all stages of evolutionary development was, of course, ridiculous. But perhaps even Tesla did not realize the scope of his own greatness, and the intellectual gap which existed as a barrier between him and those of Earth who had not yet attained discipleship. At any rate, after his departure from the Pittsburgh plant, the Westinghouse engineers worked out their own problems, and eventually the manufacturing process got underway. Tesla returned to his own laboratory in New York to his beloved research, a wealthy man, free from the need of commercialism. This freedom was for him the greatest triumph that might come to a human soul. Working again on research for his polyphase power system, he was granted 45 patents in this country during the next 4 years, in addition to more than 100 in foreign countries. Edison had long been busy aiming competitive lances in all directions. He was strictly a commercial, money-making man. He was untrained in the science of electrical engineering, and therefore had to depend upon those whose services he could get for hire. He was tied hand and foot to the value of the dollar, and was thereby forced into the role of a huckster. He could never shake himself free from the clutches of the monkey on the back in the form of J.P. Morgan's interest, although there is no evidence to show that he desired to do so. Some men are destined to play the role of the organ grinder. It does not lie with the karmic pattern of all men to compose great music. Edison had tangled with Westinghouse on many occasions, but when it was discovered that Westinghouse, capable and far-visioned, a successful inventor and a successful businessman, had taken on the task of developing Tesla's alternating current, the battle took on a new and fiercer phase. It was at this time that the New York State prison authorities stepped openly into the white magic field of electricity and turned it into a field of black magic almost overnight. They adopted alternating current as developed by Tesla for the electrocution of condemned prisoners. Tesla claimed that the Edison interests had engineered the project to discredit alternating current. There was more than a little truth in this, although that was probably not the original purpose. For the Edison interests, anxious to make a dollar even one jump ahead of the undertaker, had tried to provide direct current to power the electric chair. But they had failed because the plain fact of the matter was that the direct current could not be produced at the high voltages required. All this was lost on the public, however, as the Edison interests proclaimed from the housetops that the prison's choice of current was proof of the deadly danger of Tesla's invention. Now we can look back and realize that this victory of the forces of darkness, operating from the astral plane directly through the prison authorities, touched off a retrogressive movement which has since carried certain aspects of civilization back to evil days which have not been known on this planet since the sinking of Atlantis. Now people like to look back to the pre-atomic age and blame the nuclear scientists for the present destructive threat to humanity. But nuclear scientists would not have had a ghost of a chance of exercising their black magic had not the road to darkness been well paved already by black magicians long in control on the astral plane. The New York State prison authorities cooperated to the hilt in assisting the black magicians to take over control of the alternating current invention, and all humanity has suffered by being robbed and robbed and robbed of the true advantages of the invention since that dreadful day.